can be a good fit for, but it's usually more in the rural areas and for specific purposes. Most of the surrounding cities use an ultra-thin asphalt surface. They use a thin mix of some kind. There are various types of resurfacing methods that are not a lot more expensive. It all varies. It's either comes down to a matter of cost or longevity, sustainability. I think Overland Park budgets every 7 years to resurface their residential streets. They've just made a decision that starting in 2014, that would be with Chipseal. Some of these other methods have to be reapplied every 5 to 6 years. So, it's definitely something for the city to take into consideration when they're looking at their overall budget. But there are other solutions that are not only better, but safer and more appropriate for our residential streets. And I'm sure any of the engineers from any of our nearby cities would be happy to work with Overland Park. Those that I've spoken with share the same opinion I have and my neighbors have, probably the same opinion you all have. And so I think that collaboration and willingness to collaborate is certainly present.
That's fantastic. And you're absolutely correct. And we're going to show a few slides here, in terms of the techniques. I just had a text. What do you recommend? So first of all, we are in this conversation to open the ideas to the new ideas, but majority of these ideas have been proposed before. And the majority of the reasons has been simply one line: we don't have the money for it. That's right. Usually governments, that's the easiest answer a government can throw your way, is that I don't have the money for it. I believe we as the parents also use that strategy against the kids. Whenever we don't want to, give them what they want. I don't have the money for it. And the kid is like, oh, Dad. So now we are facing a situation where priorities seems to be misplaced. So what is, in your opinion, as a community leader and as a very aware neighbor, where do you rank this Chipseal, which the term, when you talk about your street, sometimes it kind of sounds a little bit kind of like, why this is even high priority? But where do you rank that in your priorities in terms of city services?
Oh, I rank it very high. If I would say it's probably one of my top 1 or 2 concerns, and has been for now 7 years. Absolutely at the top.
And I think you kind of said it there too, Dr. Farassati. You said, you hear it, and I'll admit I'm guilty of, when I got to the first thing I heard about city council was the public's #1 concern was Chipseal. And I was like, well, I live about as far south as you can get, where everybody has a couple acres. So it's not, by nature, it's not that same sense of community. It's, I was like, yeah, it looks terrible. I don't like driving on it. And then I find out, I get emails that people riding bikes on it. It makes it dangerous for them. I'm like, well, I wasn't aware of that. And then I hear stories like yours, like, well, now it's really getting impactful. Now I get it. Okay. Now it's become a public safety, a satisfaction. And now I understand why the public says it's their #1 concern. And everyone on the council knows it's the public's #1 concern. Everyone will tell you that. That's no secret. But yeah, and I think both of you kind of hit on it. Well, I'm sure Dr. Farassati, you will both talk about it more, but I think it's a matter of priorities. It's the budget comes to us kind of set by in a certain way by previous guidance and some staff input and a certain set of priorities, and then it's left to us. If we want to change it, then put something in and take something out. And one council member is not going to sit there in a meeting and do that. I want to scratch these LED lights. I want to scratch the bathroom at this park. And it's just not going to happen. It has to be guidance to the staff, a full shift in ideas. not this Titanic of mindset that we've established over the past 15 years that was developed in economic prosperity. Well, now we're in a different position. So yeah, I guess that's all I want to say is, you know, to me, this looks now it's impactful and deserves priority is basically the gist of it.
Now, let me ask you this question. You know, in your battle against Chipseal, you hit on a very important point, which is responsiveness to the voice of the people being heard. And just accepting the criticism. And again, not trying to go after any specific individual, but how was your experience in that? Because sometimes, even if you don't provide the solution to the people, as long as you listen to them, they feel some level of satisfaction. How was your experience in terms of how they were listening to you? I heard that you praised some of our staff that listened to you, but my point is mostly towards policymakers.
Yeah, there was not a whole lot of action or follow-up to the minimal amount of listening that they did do. So when I say they listened, that meant responding to maybe 1 out of every 5 of our emails or phone calls, not allowing us to attend, you know, city council meetings, only being allowed to attend a public works committee if it was after the meeting, you know, off the record. And, you know, other than a couple of the engineers who would come out from public works, none of the city council members came out and actually took a look at the streets, walked with us, drove through, you know, actually saw firsthand. I mean, I could send photos, but coming out and looking at it, you know, from what I understand, we were one of the very first neighborhoods to get chip seal. So I kind of feel like in many ways, we were the guinea pig. They learned from what went wrong in our neighborhood. And, you know, there was no willingness to fix what went wrong. They just decided to learn from it and try to do a little bit better next time. And so there was, I would say, the willingness to listen and respond was below the bare minimum.
So now at this point, Scott, do you have any other questions for Sheila?
No, go right ahead.
I want to go ahead and share a few slides with you, which I think it's going to be somewhat informative. And this information is obtained from a very technical source. It's not something that I, in my limited level of knowledge, have put together by myself. So let me share this screen. There we go. Okay. So now, one sec. Okay. You guys see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, okay. So this dilemma that we are facing with essentially comes down to 3 alternatives that exist. And I am intending to educate myself as much as I can learn. Thanks God, I never became an engineer, but sometimes you have to learn new things. So there are 3 alternatives to Chipseal. Number 1, the collective opinion that I have got in communication with technical staff of other cities is exactly like what Sheila said. We never use this in our residential streets. That's a umbrella statement, and nobody deviates from that. Okay. Having this said, yes, that is true that Overland Park, in terms of the size, is different than many other cities. But their statement is what they say. We never use these on our residential streets. Number 2 is that in a conversation with an official from another jurisdiction, it was brought to my attention that they don't even consider Chipseal a permanent solution to anything. It's something that has supposed to be always a very temporary solution to be deployed in terms of filling cracks and not a permanent solution. So far, the adjacent cities, again, I can definitely disclose the source of the information later if it comes to it. But these 3 techniques in terms of microsurfacing ultra-thin bounded asphalt surface or UBAS, and now ultra-thin HMA, 1-inch overlay, they refer to it, has been used. And it seems that our neighboring cities have tried all of them. They are all better than Chipseal, and it is true, they are all more expensive than Chipseal. But the number 3, which is ultra-thin HMA 1-inch overlay, seems to be a point of agreement between these neighboring cities that is cost effective, and it provides the most user-friendly platform for treatment of the residential streets. And that is cross-referenced, and I even have reference from me all the way to Michigan, which provides the same, and Minnesota, which provides the same conclusion. So we, as scientists in medicine, cross-referencing is extremely important for us and adds to the value of an opinion. And this seems to be very, very strongly cross-referenced and validated. In terms of comparing the benefits of this, when you look at the 1-inch overlay, which is on the top, it provides to you with the smoothness, that the patches are fixed, and the structure enhancement. And then none of the other two, that these other two are still much better than Chipseal. Chipseal doesn't even deserve to be on this table. None of them provides at that level. So one thing I want to mention to you is that in the technical terms of engineers, you have preventive treatment and you have maintenance. And preventive treatment adds to the life of your streets. And they consider the THMOs a preventive treatment, which actually extends the life cycle of your street. And Chipseal is not even, as far as I understand, is not even considered a preventive treatment. It's just maintenance, which does not even extend the life of the road. What you get is essentially a road at a lower quality. So you never recur the quality that you have lost in front of your house. Advantages of this 1-inch overlay, as is stated by the experts, is ease of construction, minimal construction time, and there is no need to adjust the structure that this is applied to. There are information about it being used on very active residential streets. I am not exactly remembering if this is somewhere around us. I think this is outside our city, 3,200 vehicles per day. The other one was sent to me is 4,800 vehicles per day that pass on it. That's how it looks essentially in terms of coarseness, how grainy it looks. And in summary, again, the information is extensive and I have permission to provide it. But again, not to make it too long, but in summary, it provides excellent serviceability, effectively seals the surface, provides a smooth, high-skid surface, low life cycle cost, minimal user impacts, and it's now being applied for the neighboring cities, including Olathe and Lee. Now it comes down to the cost, I believe, at the end of the day. So when we talk about the cost, it's somewhere about probably in the neighborhood of 20–30% more expensive. But the fact remains that a $300 million a year city, in my humble opinion, should be able to deliver this service to its residents. And we intend to bring that discussion up strongly. I can assure you that this time we will discuss this with our colleagues on the council. If it comes to it, we will represent the same data in more depth. And I am not worried about any conversation or discussion against me either. Either I can be convinced with the data and the research that this information which was provided to me is irrelevant. I can be convinced, but if I'm not being convinced, the mere fact that we don't have the money is not going to be enough for us, and Councilman Hamblin is going to continue the conversation to essentially back away because it's not justified. If we are supposed to cut something else, we will definitely look into it. Although the number one thing that I will cut is these tax giveaways to mega million-dollar developers. And had we done that policy, we would not be in this situation right now. Let me remind you, and this is math, that the reserve funds of the city of Overland Park around, Scott has these numbers, 2008, 2009, hovered around $90 million, and 2021, I think, hovers around $40 million. What profile of investment is it that we have done which has brought this disaster to us? Is Overland Park a nice city? Definitely it is. If Overland Park, do I want to live? I love living in Overland Park. Do I enjoy it? I definitely do, but I'm not going to close my eyes to the problems that exist. I'm not going to close my eyes to the pictures of those kids. I'm not going to close my eyes to the fact that my kid could be the next kid there. And the chip seal was applied gladly in front of my house too. And, you know, the first angry email I ever got from any constituent in the last 5 years, the title was, "You do not represent us," was about the chip seal. I have never got that. And I was trying to say, yes, well, bring it on me. I take the anger, but trust me, we are trying to prevent this. So financial policies dictate our services. Wrong financial policies, obsolete economic models brings these issues, and it does not get better for a 200,000 people city, which is limiting 60 something years of age, and it will just needs better maintenance. So with that, I will handle it to Councilman Hamblin to continue the conversation, and then Q&A with Mrs. Rodriguez.
Okay, well, I mean, I don't have much to say. I'll throw some input in. I mean, and Dr. Farassati talks about it, you know, it's financial policy. So we're right now, there's no doubt that this is a tough discussion. This is we're in, as the city manager puts it, a structural deficit. So what, in order to maintain the city services we're currently providing, which we've pretty much cut down to the bare minimum, I don't think anyone would disagree with that. In order to maintain that, we're having to spend out of our savings. So we've already got that problem, that we've got to magically somehow, and they want that savings to run down to 30% of our budget, and then we're going to magically level it off and find the money to make it all work. Maybe our investments are going to pay back at that point. Our $1 billion we gave away will pay us back, and our budget will fix itself. I don't know. I'm not real hopeful on that. But the so that makes the discussion hard, but there's definitely things that we can do. It's priorities. And like I said, the other cities are not using Chipseal. And they don't have this as their residents' number one complaint because they're not doing it. We do have it as our residents' number one complaint. Everybody knows it. And like Faris said, that we throw up our hands and we say we can't afford it. You know, we got the lowest mill levy, deal with it. That's what we do. That's exactly what we do. Well, they don't. I mean, the people don't want to deal with it. They've spoken loud and clear. And I think part of the problem, in my opinion, is that it's public engagement. It's that simple. It's, you know, and maybe it is as simple as that the representatives hear it like I did for the first time and be like, really? You're concerned about what the road's covered with? Clearly you don't know the problems we have. Well, now I get it. Okay. So it's a matter of priorities. And if you listen to the council, like I said, we're still, you know, like I said, to use a bad analogy, a Titanic ship of 15 years of mindset that's obsolete now. And instead of continuous public engagement, we substituted that with one public engagement, and we call it forward OP, which forward OP it's a vision. That's it. It's a vision, and that's fantastic. You know, you got to have a vision, right? a vision naturally is going to miss is the current economic conditions and the current needs of the citizens. I mean, just by nature, you're going to be looking out in front. I can guarantee you when the Chiefs play their first football game next year, Andy Reid's not going to sit in that locker room and say, now go out there and think about the Super Bowl, which is essentially what we're doing. We've taught everyone that if you want to sell something to the Overland Park Council, you say forward OP and we got to buy it. And that's how we're ending up with half full apartments, you know, live, work, and play. You'll hear that over and over. Even the candidates that come out of nowhere repeat this same stuff. We've trained everyone to talk this way. And we've taken this vision from a one-time engagement with the public and we've turned it into our absolute roadmap. And that's the problem, in my opinion. I think, you know, we hear it. Oh, how many times do we want to be told it without, like you said, having somebody come in and give this presentation you just gave to the council and say, do you get it now? And that's, you know, and it's going to take just a shift of priorities. It's that simple. It's going to take help from the staff. It's going to take developing the budget with the residents in mind. You're not going to get it done just by scratching a few things off here. It's going to take a shift in priorities. And I think instead of looking so far into the future, we're building roads around where I live in preparation for 2040 or beyond. And they say, and that's if ever. Okay. We just spent $30 million turning Quivira from a 2-lane road into a 2-lane road with a median. And sure, it's flatter, it's safer. That would also double our public works budget. So shouldn't we, you know, how many neighborhoods of Chipseal would that have fixed? And that's, you know, instead of looking to 2040 and beyond, let's look at today and see if we can solve the #1 complaint the residents have.
Scott, that's fantastic. One more thing, when we talk about numbers, I just had a text which talks about the numbers. Let me just show you this. And this is, I'm going to show this, I believe, in a lot of places for a long time. This is brokerage project. $200 million in December was given away to this project, which would affect the next 10 years. And this is only one project. And here is your Chipseal money right in front of you. City of Overland Park, $26 million gave up for a golf course to become a bunch of shops and apartments. We are not going to talk about apartments for a second. Just imagine. Shawnee Mission School District lost $50 million. You want to talk about budget? Stop the hemorrhage. Simply stop the hemorrhage. So that's portion of it. In terms of sales tax exemption, which this city, according to a lot of people, is built on the back of the sales tax. For one project, this brokerage project, one more time, one project, we will publish the whole data, very easy to navigate. These are public documents. Nothing should be or is confidential. City of Overland Park, only on this project, lost $5 million. That's doubling your Chipseal, the street maintenance budget, essentially. 5, 6, what we have. We could have doubled that if we didn't give up that money. You will hear, you know, there would be conversations about, you know, these monies being given away are going to bring a lot of revenue back and we're going to roll in money. It did not happen. These policies have been in place by the status quo for the last 10 years. It's not here. It is not here.
I mean, it was the idea of keep the property. You know, we got the low mill levy. Now we're going to substitute that with sales tax, which we're going to generate by putting offices and apartments above boutique retail. So we're talking about substituting the property tax with boutique retail sales in an online world. That's what we did. It doesn't take Warren Buffett to walk away from that investment. and here's a perfect example, and you know, I could go on for hours about this, but this is all you really need to see. This week you got a perfect chance. Wednesday night you can turn it, listen live to the Finance and Economic Development Committee, and what they're going to do is they're going to give $4 million of sales tax away to a developer, and they're going to justify it by telling you that only a small portion of it is the cities. The rest of it is the schools and the states. So what do you care? But here's the catch, and see if anyone else catches the irony here. Tomorrow night, Monday night, we're all going to sit in a meeting about how the state of Kansas wants to toll 69 highway. So maybe that's why we care. Does anybody, you know, so you can see the policy and the mindset all in 1 week. Just watch 2 meetings this week. Watch Monday when when the state tells us they need to toll our highway, and then watch Wednesday when we give away the state's money and say we don't care. So there you go.
Scott, it's a catch-22.
Yeah.
And last time I checked, Overland Park was not an island.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
What goes to Johnson County. When you look at the Johnson County Community College losing, it's not the Chipseal issue, but it's at the back of us. $17 million for one project, you know. Then what do you expect from the attitude towards Chipseal? You know, we have to have discussion. We're gonna have a discussion about the Highway 69. We're gonna have a discussion about the budget. Please be on our Facebook, and we will announce this, and then we will put the videos up. With apologies, I didn't hit the record button. I'm very sorry. Half of it I did, but the other half I didn't. But we will put that half on, and there's going to be in our library. And tell your neighbors to please join our conversations. Hopefully by July, the vaccines are going to be deployed. We got the news that the federal government predicts that all Americans will be vaccinated by July, and that's a very welcome prediction one way or the other. And then we will move towards a face-to-face meeting that we very much miss, meeting with people. Now let's go back to Sheila with any questions that that you might have. Please do us a favor and ask your questions and enter to conversation, or questions that you might have for IRS Scott. Thank you. Case closed. There is no nobody wants to defend the Chipseal. So okay, anybody wants to elaborate on a personal experience or something?
I have a question. Well, not a question, but there are a lot of questions in the chat. If you'll just look at the chat and address some of those. Okay.
Well, again, I usually don't pay attention to the chat, and later on I might, but is there
if the other council members will let me, I will address those chat questions. This is Jim Kite. I'm chairman of Public Works.
Jim,
I'm close to Chipseal, anybody on this call.
Yes.
And I've worked it for 5 years.
We very much appreciate your presence here.
All right, Faris, if you'll work with me, we can work on some of this.
That is
Ms.
right.
Rodriguez, I can tell her that I've worked Chipseal for 5 or 6 years, and I have stood in those driveways talking to folks. We have a better process. Now, I won't insult all of you to tell you how many falsehoods I've heard in the last half hour. If you want to know the truth, you can contact me. So I won't smear them like they're smearing us. But there's a lot more to this. First of all, this whole thing about incentives is core to a candidacy, not about this issue. There are no purely residential projects that have gotten any incentives at all. And usually when you compare these phony numbers, it's to, if you want to have a true picture, it's whether the project will be built at all. And so the inflated numbers are not true. And this does not track to our budget. Chipseal is the most cost effective, and it will be for a long time, because other systems require, because of their nature, that we have to do the curbs and sidewalks at the same time. Chipseal is simply like painting your house. It's to buy you some time until you can do a mill and overlay. We have more streets. We're a bigger city. I'm open to, if anything that Faris and Scott have in mind, who, by the way, have never voted no on Chipseal, we can talk about it. I, on the other hand, got involved. We now have a different process in the cul-de-sacs. We use a smaller aggregate. We use better emulsion. We had some very hard conversations with vendors after Ms. Rodriguez's neighborhood was done about quality. And we have more inspections, more sweepings. Chipseal is getting better. Any process, people, if you'll listen to me, gets complaints. Mill and overlay, people complain about the fact that their street is ground up and it's like a washboard for a month until the overlay comes. When we do nothing but pure concrete, like we did in some neighborhoods near City Hall, people can't get to their homes for a week and have to carry their groceries over the back fence. You can't fix or maintain streets painlessly. I have suffered the slings and arrows of every one of these systems, including slurry seal. Faris, if you and Scott want a path forward, I am your chairman and I will work with you. But so far, comparing this to other city policies, we're always open, and there's not a thing on your slides that our engineers aren't looking at. When we had some cul-de-sacs that did not perform well, much like Ms. Rodriguez is relaying, our people went in those subdivisions and they redid the bulbs, the cul-de-sac bulbs, with slurry seal. Because in those days, in 2014 and 15 and 16, in my humble opinion, it's just me, not everybody else on the council, I thought Chipseal underperformed and we required them to fix them. So we'll look for something going forward. It's not an easy decision. It's not because money has been lining the pockets of out-of-state developers or other cheap shots. It's because we are a big city and we have lots of streets. And if we can come up with something that's cost-effective to maintain them, that's fine. I would ask my friends on the council who are listening, go spend a day while they're chip sealing, like I have. Go invest the time, taking my wife out, looking at test bulbs in cul-de-sacs 3 years ago, where they use several different systems. And we went out and inspected them to see which ones would work on a cul-de-sac bulb the best, and picked one that is now such that we're getting far fewer complaints than we ever did before, because it is a better system. So that's all I can add to the conversation at this juncture. And Ms. Rodriguez, we're both Sprint employees. You should be able to find me rather easily. I would invite the opportunity to come by your home. Not this week though, Sheila. I don't think either one of us want to stay in your driveway.
We don't want to be outside this week. Maybe next
No, we
week when it warms up.
I apologize. That's my Labradoodle Maggie barking at us. I will
That's
work
okay.
with you. I'd like to hear.
I
By the way,
would welcome that.
Yeah, that's
all right.
fantastic.
I'm friends with one of your neighbors, if you know Andy and Gretchen,
Yeah.
and maybe we can have them as well.
That's
We'll
fantastic.
find a way. And Faris, if you really want to, since you and I both have voted yes on Chipseal more than once, we equally have the stain on us. If you'll work with me,
Jim,
I'll work with you to find a path forward. Is that
Jim,
fair, Faris?
Jim, it's very, very encouraging that you are here. And
well, thank you.
I appreciate your efforts, especially in the area of recycling. I have always respected your enthusiasm and leadership in the area of recycling, which I would like to mention to everybody that Jim is a great advocate of environmental policies. That is true. However, you referred to the data that was provided by our city administration as inaccurate and fake. The data I want to submit to you that are public documents, the impact of these tax giveaways to the pocket of the billionaires and out of the pocket of the taxpayer, the transfer of the money from public to private is not something that we can debate. The impact of these policies and the fact that the Shawnee Mission School District would have this impact on it, the budget of the city would have impact on it, is essentially, I propose to you, you as a evidence-oriented man, is that you cannot debate on that. You can debate on the fact that these projects, our intention today is not to talk about the kind of like tax giveaway issue, but since you brought it up, you
brought it up, Faris, and your numbers are false.
Let me finish. Yes. What is?
Let me finish. You proved to me. I mean, Christy Stallings, the assistant city manager, has given us the cash flow of how giveaways affect. I say, using your terminology, giveaways affect the budget, and it's much smaller numbers, and that presumes that the project would be built anyway, which In most cases, it's not. And I'm curious. You use brickery.
No, that's not accurate. What you are saying is that it's a good policy to make an addiction in the development in Overland Park to tax giveaways. What you are proposing,
There's lots of projects that don't get any tax incentive.
Of course they shouldn't. Single family houses, if you want to build them in Overland Park, it just doesn't go that way. We are having this apartment invasion and this congestion, which constantly doesn't want to pay taxes. And the policies of the status quo has been supportive of that. And then the shining armor is now showing cracks in it. And we can see it in the middle of this pandemic. We saw it. And we saw it over and over again, how these policies is being pushed forward as a promise of a pie in the sky that never happened. We saw it in 2020 of the policies. We saw the depletion of the reserve funds. Jim, my friend,
every city saw their reserve drawn down. There's a pandemic. You as a scientist, I don't think that's a shock to you.
The pandemic is there, but not every city has its reserve fund slashed by half.
If you spin out this yarn about our financial condition, I ask everybody, all these faces I see on the screen, who's got the highest bond rating in this part of the world?
So Jim, I have your agreement in banning chip seals next time I bring this item to public.
Listen, Faris, I'll tell you what, Faris, my friend, let's pass this part on a positive note. So these folks know that you and I can work together. So if you and I can find a path forward on street maintenance.
In front of these people, I'm gonna say I'm gonna bring a proposal to ban Chipseal in Overland Park to the committee, and I hope that you would support that.
No, and not until we see what we've got in its place. So rather than bring it to
same thing as
I would think you would bring it to the engineers. Come to me. I'll take a day off. You and I'll go down and we'll talk to the engineers and we'll show them.
I have already done my research. I presented to the committee. Same thing as Leewood does. I want to ban Chipseal, and I want to apply exactly as our rich cousin Leewood what they do. And if you don't have the way,
you can spin out all the yarns you want to about taxes. They have 3 times the tax rate we do.
Yeah.
So if you want to tell all these faces on screen that we want to triple taxes in Overland Park,
because they keep it.
We can go plate the streets.
Because they keep it. The reason they have taxes is that they don't give it away. All right,
they and Lenexa and the others have been aggressive users of incentives, more so than Overland Park. And folks on the screen,
they just don't have the spectrum of Overland Park. Let's go to the question of the other. Jason, go ahead.
Faris, thank you for letting me entertain. I will go on mute.
Jim, why are you, Jim, don't leave. Stay with us.
I'm not leaving, but I am going to have a glass of Pinot Noir here in a minute.
Yes, sir.
Wish you were here to share it with me.
Yes, sir. Jim, thank you for your contribution. Jason, I see a hand up, but you guys don't need to raise your hand, but I see a hand up by Jason, so go ahead if you are still here. Hello? Jason? Okay, so anybody wants to talk, go ahead, guys. Any comments?
I had a question for Jim, and I really appreciate the additional information he shared and willingness to work with us. Do you have the name of any subdivision that you think Chipseal performed well in that you could share that I could drive through?
Sheila, offhand, I don't, but I'll find that. I owe it to you. You and I share the same email domain, so we should be able to find each other real quick. For everybody else on the call, Sheila and I are former Sprint, now part of the new T-Mobile. And I'll work with you. And I could direct you to one cul-de-sac bulb that we did an inspection on 2 years ago, where we used a different grade of emulsion, smaller aggregate. For those of you on the call, aggregate means the rocks. By the way, every one of these methods we talk about is a combination of asphaltic emulsion and stones. I mean, you can't get away from the rocks. There's going to be rocks in some form or fashion, whether you do mill and overlay, whether you do slurry. There's a number of combinations, and some of these just don't last. Slurry seal is one that doesn't hold up. And so, Sheila, you know, maybe someday we can since we don't want to get around folks too much with COVID, maybe we can take separate cars and I can drive you through some soul division.
So Jim,
And,
if
and
you're
go
gonna
ahead.
talk about technicalities, let me show you this slide.
All right,
That
please.
line if you could hear me, that line in the middle of it says preventive maintenance, and at the bottom of it, it's, you know, you see the line, I hope it says corrective maintenance. Chipseal doesn't even qualify as preventive maintenance. Therefore, the life spectrum of your road is not going to be even affected by this treatment. Essentially, Jim, we are providing our residents with nothing. We are wasting their money. According to the engineering data, is not even considered preventive. All the three other methods that I suggested are preventive maintenances, and Chipseal isn't. So
Chipseal is indeed. I mean, talk to our engineers. It is a preventive maintenance.
This is the data from I believe reliable sources.
I don't think the city prepared this slide, but the point
no,
being,
the city didn't. The city wouldn't, because, you know, there is a
just
level of pressure, I believe, that we don't want to listen to new ideas, which we are very familiar with.
Okay, well,
Jason,
everybody heard
here?
that. Then let's talk to the engineers. They're into now. Some of the items you talk about are not preventative because they require sidewalk and curb rebuilds, which means it's not 30% more, it's 300% more. Some processes, because of what they are, they're classified as a rebuild, and so OSHA requires us to rebuild all the sidewalks, put in ADA ramps at the intersections, and redo the curbs. Which
people tell me, don't do 20 miles for me, do 2 miles for me, and do it the right way, please.
Well, there's somebody else lives on the other 18 miles.
Do it the right way. Anybody else, Jason?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, anybody else who wants to talk? I see a hand up by Jason, but I still don't hear anything from him. So,
okay, Dr. Farassati, can you hear me now?
Yes, Jason.
Okay, finally got my audio fixed here. You know, this meeting has been encouraging and discouraging at the same time. It's discouraging when I hear any sort of discussion that Chipseal has to be part of the solution going forward, because the only way that we're going to fix this is that we all agree that regardless of what happens, Chipseal must be ended. And I hope Mr. Kite is listening, because that's a very important thing. That is any defense of, you know, we can argue about what the right way is going forward, but any defense of Chipseal is flat out wrong, and that is not part of the answer. You know, I've spent probably more time than anybody researching this issue. I've spent time talking with every single public works director of every other city in Johnson County, and they laugh when they talk about Overland Park and say that they have no idea what's going on in Overland Park because they would never consider doing what Overland Park does. I've talked, Lee Summit quoted me what their prices were, and they were, you know, Overland Park tells everybody that it costs half as much and lasts twice as long, which is an absolute falsehood. That has been restated by everyone from the mayor to the director of public works, and it is absolutely not true. I have talked with every other public works director, and they achieve costs that are maybe 20% higher than Overland Parks, and it lasts exactly as long as Overland Parks does. And it's very disingenuous that our city council would be putting out false information like that, and it's come from the very top, and I've heard it many times.
Well, Jason, I'd love to have you talk to the public works director with me then.
I have spoken with the public works director in the past, and I've talked with my council members in the past. And Mr. Kite, I spoke with one of your former colleagues, Mr. Scooble, and he laughed at me on the phone and mocked me. He said, "You know what? That sounds like your problem." He's like, "I don't know why you think you deserve anything better than what we give you." And Mr. Spears gave me the exact same connotation. He mocked me and laughed and hung up the phone on me. Those are not responsible people. And I hope, and I am encouraged by the fact that we have a new public works committee chair and yourself. And I hope that we have an entirely different attitude, because what we've had to this point has been woefully inadequate and entirely inappropriate for a city of this size. This is not Raytown, Missouri, which, by the way, is the only other city in the metro that uses Chipseal. Kansas City, Missouri, long been one of the most incompetent government organizations in the metro, doesn't even use this. Are we Raytown, Missouri, or are we Overland Park? this must be ended. We can have a great conversation, and I'd be more than happy to be part of the research going forward and to find a positive solution for this. But what we all have to agree on is that it cannot involve chip seal. It can be a number of different things, but it cannot be chip seal.
I understand, Jason. You in chat, you should have my wireless number. You see it?
I do.
All right. You and I have a date. We'll talk.
Jim, how
And
many
I
years
want to
you
hear
have
more.
been- Jim, let me ask you this question. How come we never hear about an open conversation with our residents about chip seal? And this has been on the back of our residents for 15 years. And you have been the chairman of Public Works 2-3 times, because Mr. Gerlach's policies never allows an opposition to become a chairman to the committee. Why is it that?
Down and leave her alone.
I'm sorry?
That's somebody that has their mic open.
Yeah.
Why
is it that we are not having a citywide discussion with?
Because that's probably for electioneering.
Beyond the chip seal.
I've talked to, I don't know how many residents, not just about chip seal, but about mill and overlay, about concrete. When you disrupt people's lives by maintaining or rebuilding their streets, they can get angry. So I give you a broader context. No street maintenance or street reconstruction process is painless. And there's residents that don't like it. And I have spent years, I've only been chair of this committee for 1 year. But I was vice chair. And by the way, Fred Spears is a friend of mine. He busts a gut to help his community. I'm sorry that Jason or others felt like he was not responsive. I stood in driveways with Fred, with people that were mad about maybe not chip seal, but about something public works. So I'm sorry. And in our line of work, Faris, you know that as well. Some folks are just not satisfied because you come in here.
But Jim, that's the answer we hear over and over again from what I respectfully refer to as a status quo. Please don't get me wrong. That's not an insult. But from the current state of affairs is that if you want something different, if you want something revolutionary, if you want something innovative and new, there is something wrong with you. You are always angry. You are a naysayer. And then the person calls me and says, who is in this neighborhood next to me that you have such a nice treatment? And I look at the map and that's Leawood. How can I convince a resident that you deserve chip seal when they have Leawood in front of their eyes? It's difficult, Jim. It's very difficult.
I understand. They pay a lot more in taxes. We have managed to attract and become the economic juggernaut of Johnson County because we have by far the lowest taxes. And the use of tax incentives has been measured compared to our neighbors. And we continue to grow even through the pandemic. It's a separate and apart from our tax base for public works. But I'm open, and you are too, Faris. Let's pat each other on the back. Let's have a discussion. What would chip seal look like? But I would ask everybody to think about the new chip seal, what we've done differently now, particularly in cul-de-sac bulbs, because that's where this usually occurred.
In front of my house, in August, the new chip seal is deployed. I can tell you that's the disaster upon disaster unfolding.
Well, see, it's in front of my house too. If you'd spent time with them, I spent the whole day wearing my little orange vest and my white hard hat when they chip sealed my neighborhood several years ago.
Jim,
Here's something else to consider is that folks don't like the inconvenience of not being able to get to their home, and other processes put probably more black grimy things in their driveways and into their homes because they're less reliant on the aggregate and more reliant on emulsion.
It's like, Jim,
So
it's like they always scare people of something worse.
Well, there is, but I'm not going to sugarcoat it, Faris. There's inconvenience to every one of these. But one thing about chip seal is within an hour, people can get to their home. Not 2 days, not 3 days.
I don't think anybody cares if you give them a nice surface. They could go sleep in a hotel for 3 days, but for the rest of 40 years that they live in their house, they would not be facing a disaster called chip seal and having.
Thank you for your wisdom, Faris. I'll get them to call you when they call me about I can't get to my house.
I honestly, Jim, I love you for your recycling. I just think that you feel a level of responsibility to defend the existing policies, and I wish.
Well, I feel a level of responsibility to tell these folks on this screen, and I know some of the names. There's some of the other folks that have coalesced with you in other neighborhoods. I think there's a path forward with or without Chip.
Yeah, I hope so.
I'm willing to have that discussion, Chip, with Chip.
I hope so. We will bring an inhibition to Chipseal proposal.
I'm not prepared to support that,
Okay.
but I'll
yeah, of course you're not,
Jim.
Of course you're not. I didn't say.
I'll have a discussion about what we could replace it with. Just prohibition means you don't fix the street.
Yeah, no. Well, I'm saying we're gonna bring the alternative solution with the data, and we want to see how you react to it. As my dear colleague, when we face the data, if it comes to it, I present. If it comes to it, I will get national leaders, university professors on the phone talking about this. And
Sure.
I welcome your.
Are you going to run it past staff first? Let the engineers look at it? Or are you just going to do this with?
The data, absolutely. I'll send it to anybody and anybody who is listening. There is zero talk.
If you want change, go through staff. That's our process in every department. They're the experts.
Absolutely.
They will weigh in and say this might work. Faris has an idea.
I will go through them, but I will not accept the way we have done this as an answer. I can tell you that. I will accept data-oriented conversation. I will not accept two things. We don't have the money. I don't accept it. Number two, this is the way we have done this. I don't accept it. These two things. But anything else that says, okay, well, this proposal is nonsense.
Well, first, my friend, we will work together. We'll see if we can get to that place you're going. How's that?
Scott.
Well, I mean, I think we could sit here all night. I think we're just, this is the perfect example of, we just see philosophical differences right here. And like we said earlier, it's going to get stated as soon as you say the word Chipseal, you're going to get, well, it could be worse, just like every development there is. Well, we're going to approve that because one of our good friends said 20 years ago that be careful what you wish for. You'll hear that every time. They'll tell you, well, they pay a lot more in taxes. You want your taxes raised, then, or it's all the, like we said it before, it's just a basic philosophical difference. It's where you want to put your priorities. Well, do we want to build new roads over taking care of the ones that we have? It's just, do we want to continue with the economic policies? It's just, you could debate it. You could debate these issues all night. It's been done. So it's just I
think the one positive thing is that at least there's a discussion going on like this, and getting everybody together, the council together with Public Works, with the residents of Overland Park, and together, I'm sure we could come up with a solution that is superior to what we have today. But it's going to be really hard for any of us that have tolerated Chipseal for the last 7 years. It's going to be next to impossible to get us to find that anything other than a non-Chipseal surface is going to be acceptable. I mean, it's going to be very, very difficult, if not impossible. But I think if everybody has an open mind, together we'll come up with something that everybody can live with. But I'm not very optimistic it's going to include Chipseal.
And if the words of the experts who are not influenced by our policies outside OP carries any value, they are exactly in agreement with you. They are exactly in agreement with you that it's not even in the table that they consider. That's amazing. To put it in the world of medicine, it's like if we used an antibiotic of 1960s right now, essentially. Anybody else has any comment? If not, I appreciate everybody's attendance today, 5:26 p.m. And Sheila, thank you so very much one more time for your activism. I am encouraged by Councilman Kite's appetite for listening and change. We will definitely introduce our item, and we will try to provide evidence, and we will look forward to that discussion. I encourage all of the people on this call to attend that meeting at Public Works when we're gonna bring this. First, we're gonna bring it as a discussion item, as Jim mentioned, and then we will hear the discussions. But at that point, I will ask Mr. Kite to allow public comments at that level, because it's at his jurisdiction to allow it. And what I understand from Jim is that he's open to that too. And we will try our best.
Well, first, I want the engineers to look at it. It may not be this month. I want to see the data. I want to have
yeah, but engineers, Jim, I will do that. I will send it. But
all right, and work with me, and I will, in good faith, work with you.
I know.
Let's do it inside the process.
I fully understand. I will send it to engineers. But the disagreement of engineers is not going to prevent me from bringing it to the committee. Okay, let's put it like that. I will definitely do that for you. Okay.
Let's all have a good evening, Faris.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Any comments? Anything? Did I miss anybody's comments? No? Okay. Thank you very much.
Oh, by the way, Randy Coleman, good to see you. Haven't seen you in a while. Are you on the beach?
He is.
Mr. Kai, it's good seeing you too. No, those are dreams, man. With this we got, I couldn't do this. I couldn't cross that.
I'm having a glass of Pinot. I'd come share it with you.
You know what? I like that. I've got some right here. You know, for what it's worth, I'm sort of a sponge right here because we do have, of course, all of our neighborhoods have it, and we've got a large neighborhood, and I hear some people talking about it, but I'm pretty much ignorant to it, other than knowing that it's considerably more expensive to make some of these changes that are discussed. But I think, you know, Sheila was talking about, you know, if there's something good here, it looks like there's some conversation going on. Communication is the key to all this, right? And just coming together. So as long as we could maybe look for a solution versus not looking for solutions, and you know, set up some strategies toward this thing. It may take a while to make changes. I don't know what it would take, but you know, listening to Mr. Kite here, it's more than just putting down a street surface. So how do we get at it? You know, how do we get at it, and what's it going to take? What's the plan? So it looks like obviously something needs to happen. I know we have potholes and issues with ours like everybody else. But, you know, if we can work toward a solution and start with good communication among the city council and the community, you know, that could be a good start. So
definitely. Randy, you would be
thanks, Randy.
You would be encouraged by
you too. Thanks for your work on this too, Mr. Kite. I'm sorry.
Right. Well, Faris and I will keep each other honest,
yes,
right, Faris?
We will. You would absolutely. Right. You would be encouraged by the fact that in election years, the politicians' ears opened much better than the other years. So if there was a time that you wanted to make a point, election years are the best, and we are in a prime time, which is the election year. So that's good. We are in a prime time. Councilman Hamblin, anything else you want to add?
No, I think that's about it. So yeah.
Sheila, Mrs. Rodriguez, anything else?
It's been very informative. So I thank you for you guys bringing us into this. This has been
absolutely. We are all about information. Thank you. Have a good evening.
All right.
Very good. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Have a great weekend. Please stay
too.
warm.
Yeah.
Good luck.
You too.
Go back to the beach.
Yeah.